Shall now go on to our next speaker, and Mr. Siddiq, could you connect Dr. Kalpana's recording? Dr. Kalpana Murthy is a senior consultant of the Prabha Eye Clinic, Bangalore, specializing in cataract, uvea, and ocular inflammation. And she has her own lists of accolades and awards to her merit. And she's going to be talking on uveitis manifestations of systemic lupus erythematosus. Yes, Dr.
I thank the ARC for this invitation. The term systemic lupus erythematosus comes from the words systemic, meaning multiple organ involvement. Erythematosus is reddening of skin. Lupus is a Latin word for wolf, probably referring to the erosive skin lesions resembling wolf bite seen in this condition. This disease is rare in India. Let's have a quick look at what happens in lupus. In a genetically susceptible individual, an environmental trigger can induce cell damage, causing release of nuclear antigens. There is also decreased clearing of these antigens, resulting in an antigen buildup. The host immune system responds by sending the B cells, which produce anti-nuclear antibodies against these antigens. These antibodies combine with the nuclear antigens, forming complexes, and they get deposited in the vessel walls, and they are transferred to multiple organs where there is a localized inflammation involving the complement pathway, resulting in cell destruction and the disease. These anti-nuclear antibodies can also be directed against other cells such as RBCs, WBCs, etc., which causes phagocytosis, destructions, and additional symptoms which can occur in this disease. Autoantibodies in lupus are of three types. The anti-nuclear antibodies are seen in large proportion. They are highly sensitive of lupus, but they have their specificity is less because they can also be seen in other conditions like TB or sarcoid. Anti-Smith and anti-dsDNA antibodies are highly specific for lupus, and they also indicate the activity of the systemic disease. Antiphospholipid antibodies are responsible for the hypercoagulable state and are responsible for the thrombosis-related manifestations which are seen in lupus. These are some of the manifestations seen in lupus. Ocular manifestations can occur in less than 1/3 of the cases. If there is scleritis with peripheral keratopathy or a retinal or a choroidal involvement, this echoes vasculitis in other organs. Otherwise, this disease can involve any structure of the eye. Let me highlight these with 4 representative cases. This is my first case, and this is a 33-year-old lady who presented with decrease in vision in the left eye, and she had no systemic complaints. Her right eye was absolutely normal. Left eye had decreased vision, vitritis, necrotizing retinitis with occlusive vasculitis involving the veins and the arteries. Fluorescein angiography confirmed the occlusive vasculitis. There was also multiple arterial occlusions. She also had macular edema. Her labs showed leukopenia, positive anti-nuclear antibody, very high, and a decreased complement level. Her urine routine was normal. Her anti-Smith antibodies was very strongly positive, and her APLA profile was negative. So this was a case of unilateral necrotizing retinitis with vasculitis, which was very, very rare manifestation of lupus. And the irony was this was the only manifestation with no systemic findings. Despite that, she was treated with IV methalpred and IV cyclophosphamide. And 3 weeks, her vision started improving with resolution of macular edema. At this point of time, a laser photocoagulation was also done to the ischemic area. So this is the follow-up at the end of 3 months. And now she was shifted to azathioprine with a maintenance dose of steroid. The flow void areas have decreased and her vision has improved to 6/6. So this is how her eye responded. So this case highlights that this presentation involving the retina was the only manifestation of lupus. And despite no systemic finding, this patient was aggressively treated with immunomodulators. Our case 2 is a 29-year-old lady who is being evaluated for multiple connective tissue disease. She came to us with severe headache and sudden decrease in vision in the left eye. Our neuro-ophthalmologist diagnosed her to have optic neuritis in the left eye. And in conjunction with the rheumatologist and the neurologist, she was given rituximab infusion along with 3 doses of IV methylprednisolone. However, her headache continued to worsen, and she came to us 4 days later with perifoveal whitening, and she had tortuous retinal vessels along with disc edema and hemorrhages in the posterior pole, along with rod spots in the periphery. Her OCT also showed increased hyperreflectivity in the inner retinal layers. So we diagnosed her to have an early CRVO, CRAO occlusion. And by then, we also received her results for the ANA and the APLA, which was strongly positive. She was started on blood thinners by the rheumatologist. 2 days later, we did a fluorescein angiogram, which did show decreased filling in the vessels. So this was a patient with lupus with APLA positivity who needed blood thinners in addition to aggressive immunomodulation. This was her eye 2 weeks later. And this is the eye a month later, showing resolution of the disc edema and improvement in the vision. So here is a patient with lupus with optic neuritis initially, followed by early combined CRVO, CRAO-like presentation and APLA positivity, which required blood thinners in addition to immunomodulation. So when we look at the literature, if there is an optic nerve, retinal, or a choroidal involvement, this is usually rare and seen in less than 10% of SLE, and this echoes vasculitis in the CNS and the kidneys. They generally have a poor prognosis as the intervention is done very late. So these cases, when they occur with these manifestations, have to be treated aggressively very early in the course of the disease itself. My third case is a patient with scleritis and a peripheral corneal involvement. He was diagnosed to have lupus and was started aggressively on IV methylpred and cyclophosphamide, resulting in resolution of the scleritis and the corneal lesions. So this case highlights the fact that if there is a corneal involvement along with scleritis, these patients can have a systemic vasculitic component and have to be treated aggressively. My fourth case is a 40-year-old lady with lupus who presented to us with pain in the right eye. She had a rituximab infusion 3 weeks ago and also had a past history of mild scleritis which settled down with topical steroids. So she presented her with this kind of a manifestation. Because she had received rituximab recently, we decided to just give her topical steroids and watch. Her scleritis improved in this eye, but 10 days later, she developed a peripheral corneal infiltrate in the left eye, which continued to progress rapidly with a leading edge. So this patient required immediately IV methylprednisolone followed by oral steroids. So this case highlights a paradoxical worsening which can occur after rituximab injections in these cases. This shows the excellent resolution with steroids. So to conclude, lupus can present to an ophthalmologist with ocular manifestations, and it is important for the ophthalmologist to recognize manifestations such as scleritis or retinal and choroidal lesions because they require aggressive therapy. A good teamwork with the rheumatologist helps in an overall better prognosis, and one also needs to monitor for HCQS toxicity in these cases with lupus. I thank you all for a patient.
Is Kalpana connected with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Srinivas, you have any question for her, or do we go on to the expert panel?
Yes, madam. Wonderful presentation, Kalpana, madam. I think my question, you answered it in the last slide. Like when you have multiple presentations, like it can be a retinitis, it can be a choroiditis or the optic nerve involvement. I think the retinitis has to be taken in more concern for stepping up or pumping the steroids more. And secondly, the role of the laser. When you did it in one of your case in the ischemic area. So do we have to be more aggressive in those cases where anywhere we find a case with SLE and we find the ischemic areas, then we try to target and do the targeted laser photocoagulation in these cases, madam?
Yeah, ideally it is better because these progress to ischemia and neovascularization very fast. So, we've had patients who've been on azathioprine but suddenly worsened as well. And those cases even required cyclophosphamide. So sometimes what we think immune suppression is enough may not be enough. And they can progress pretty fast. So the minute we see ischemic areas, we tend to do early laser photocoagulation in these cases.
Dr. Avinash, would you have some thoughts to add?
Yeah, I just want to have a couple of comments. Kalpana, a great presentation. So, so what are the red flag signs, especially from the retina point of view, if you come across, suppose if it's like in the order of priority where you say these patients have to be hit really hard with immunosuppression. So that's the first question. And second is, do you think that there is some controversy involved in the administration of anti-VEGF in the management of neovascularization following vasculitis of SLE origin?
So to answer the first question, see, we also see cotton wool spots initially as a microangiopathy in the eye in SLE. Again, these cases, if you look at the literature, I mean, they have to be treated aggressively. That means there is a systemic activity which is still going on. So I would be very cautious in cases where I see retinitis with vasculitis, because these are the cases which progress pretty fast. So those cases, if you've ruled out APLA, they have to be treated very aggressively with cyclo, or actually in our hands, I think cyclo we've really done well rather than rituximab, because rituximab takes some time to work. That is the first. So when I see a retinal involvement, choroidal involvement, optic nerve involvement, I'm very aggressive in my management. The second question was, what did you ask me?
Anti-VEGF.
Yeah, anti-VEGFs. So see, this was the macular edema which was there in this patient was more of an ischemic maculopathy. Ischemia related. So here we did look at the foveal avascular zone that looked okay on the fluorescein angiogram. But actually, I have really not given anti-VEGFs in my patients with lupus. At least I don't have that experience in my patients with lupus. But probably if there are a lot of ischemic areas, maybe that's something which we can keep in mind whenever we see ischemic maculopathy with macular edema.
My question was just not on macular edema, but even especially for the neovascularization, because as you said, they are extremely aggressive, and sometimes they don't wait even for the photocoagulation effect to set in, and they get fibrosed and cause a peripheral retinal detachment.
I would do that, yeah.
Dr. Biswas, you have anything to add?
I want to tell you that whenever you have seen a SLE retinopathy, you should tell the clinician that it is to be treated very seriously, because it indicates poor general health prognosis, poor prognosis for the case. Whenever there is a retinal involvement, it is a poor prognosis, and they need to switch to immunosuppressive or biologic agents. And regarding the laser photocoagulation, as soon as possible, it's a very fast progressing neovascularization and ischemia. So as soon as possible, you should get that good PRP done, good laser photocoagulation done.
And if I may add, many a times if you're seeing cotton wool spots, mainly in the peripapillary area, neuro SLE again sometimes is very important. And we may have to take the help of a neurologist in making some of these diagnoses. And as Avinash is asking, the ischemia is mainly because of the thrombotic events due to the underlying, coagulation changes that are happening. So adding cyclophosphamide is basically will help in preventing the further thrombotic event. The current ones may be managed with the standard of care, whatever you wish to do, depending on your clinical judgment. Laser is, of course, there. Anti-VEGF to be added, RPPV to be done would be like any other standard procedure. I don't think SLE per se determines that, but you got to be very aggressive in preventing the further progression.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful talk.
One last question I have to Dr. Kalpana, madam.
Yeah.
Madam, we all know that it's a rare case that the uveitis is getting developed in case of SLE, and usually this the productive value of these anti-nuclear antibodies are usually low in case of SLE. So for a common ophthalmologist, when should he order that? And what is the higher the pre-test probability that could increase the positivity of offering for this anti-nuclear antibody testings?
So you're right, Dr. Srinivas, because in your uveitis patients, to detect a patient with SLE is very low. It's between 1.2 to 4% with all the studies, and also there is a very low predictive value of these anti-nuclear antibody tests in these cases. So it doesn't make sense to test ANA for all patients with uveitis. So I would probably kind of reserve ANA testing for those patients with scleritis, and more so in patients with scleritis with peripheral corneal involvement. Along with that, in patients with, if I have a retinal vasculitis, where I do see an arterial involvement along with the venular involvement, I would probably do ANA more often in these cases. That would be...
Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you.
And a wonderful presentation. A lot of information came through. Thanks a lot, Dr. Kalpana.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah. Stay connected if you can. We would want your inputs.